Why play Taliyah Jungle? Well, she brings amazing AoE burst damage, her ultimate gives her unique ways to gank, she scales well into the mid and late game, and she has amazing objective control. However, she does have a weaker early game and can be invaded, and her damage is incredibly skill shot reliant, needing to hit all her abilities. Taliyah's passive is when she's out of combat, she builds up movement speed when near walls. Taliyah's Q is a straight line skill shot which throws out 5 rocks in a direction, dealing damage to the first enemy hit. After the first rock hits, follow-up rocks deal reduced damage against the same target. Also, while using this ability, she's able to move, and it creates a circle on the floor. If this ability is used in one of these circles on the floor, the ability instead costs far less mana, has massively reduced cooldown, and consumes the circle on the floor. In addition, instead of shooting out 5 rocks, it hurls 1 large rock which deals damage and slows enemies. If this singular large rock hits a monster, instead of slowing, it applies a very long stun. Taliyah's W creates a circle on the floor which can be directed. After a short delay, enemies within the circle are knocked in the chosen direction. Taliyah's E creates an area of stones on the floor, dealing damage and slowing all enemies hit. After 4 seconds, these stones shatter, dealing the damage again. In addition, enemies that use a dash ability through the stones, or if they're knocked through the stones, take damage for each stone they pass through up to a maximum of 4 and are stunned. This has great synergy with her W, knocking enemies through the stones. Taliyah's ultimate is a long-range skill shot which creates a wall for 4 seconds. If she immediately recasts this ability after use, she will also surf along the wall. This surf can be ended early by moving, or if she's immobilized. For combos, your massive burst damage combos use E into W and Q. And of course, if she needs to get into combat, she can start with her wall and surf along it. This can also work incredibly well to cut off enemies retreating before landing her E into W and Q. For matchups, she does very well into champions that rely on dashes, getting massive damage and stuns against them. However, she can struggle against champions that can invade her early, not relying on dashes, or becoming unstoppable when they do dash. For runes take this, she's all about the burst damage. For build order, start Red Monster and Pot into Luden's, Tier 2 boots, and a Shadow Flame. After this, a Hat, Void Staff, and Sonya's are all great pickups before finishing a build with any of these as needed. For skill order, start Q, then E, then W, before maxing Q, then E, then W, taking ult whenever you can. For summoner spells, take Flash and Smite. Starting the game, you're looking to farm hard to your early power spike. Your normal go-to will be to start the game with a full jungle clear into trying to get a Scuttle Crab. After finishing your first jungle clear, you can look for a gank, but if one's not available, instead of forcing one, it's often better to simply back and get back to farming the jungle. When you hit level 6, your ganks now become incredible with your ultimate. You now have access to incredibly creative paths with your wall. If you're able to cut off a lane's escape while you surf in, it will force them to dash or flash over the wall, which won't always be available to them. And of course, if you're able to get your E down, they're not even able to dash. When looking for a gank, always consider the 3 main points of what CC does your team bring, what escapes does your opponent have, and where is the lane push to. When ganking, the most important thing is to land your EW combo for great lockdown and massive damage. As this is so important to land, if your team's able to land CC first, this works as amazing follow-up. Entering the mid game, your main focus is going to be objectives. Your E creates a dangerous area for opponents to walk through, and you can simply get objectives for free, often by walling off your opponent. Keep skirmishing and taking objectives, trying to start every fight with your amazing burst combo. Entering the late game, you now have the damage to one-shot carries with your combo. You can play a few different roles. Firstly, landing an ultimate behind or through an enemy team can provide great engage or great disruption, separating the enemy team. Otherwise, play the backline mage assassin type role. Sit back and spam out damage with Qs while waiting for the opportunity to land a multiple person E into catapulting their carries through the ability. At this point in the game, landing your EW combo, especially with a followed up Q, will simply delete their carries.